welcome back. King Goodwill Zwelithini, his wife, Queen Mantfombi Madlamini Zulu, will be choosing the Zulu nation's new monarch. This after the king was planted on Thursday. Now, to help unpack this with the means for the Zulu monarchy and the way forward from here on, I'm joined by historian Professor Pitika Ntuli. A very good afternoon to you, Professor, and thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So is this a normal process for the Zulu nation that when Inkosi isikhotheme, that the wife, the queen, becomes the one who chooses the next monarch?
I mean, it depends on what the king in council or the king's council decide. And in this particular case, they chose one of his wives to be the one to make the announcement.
Can she be considered? Can she become the new monarch if she so decides to choose?
Her grandmother, Kwamile, is the one that acted, as a regent until the successor, King Sobhuza II, that took place. This is known to, to happen. If there's no clear-cut decision as to who is to follow, or one is it's young, then you can choose a regent, and the regent could be a woman, at least according to Nguni culture, as practiced by the Swazi people.
Any of the king's brothers, the princes, perhaps his sons, can they then too be considered? I mean, what becomes the discussion within the council as to, we've now picked the queen to be the one that chooses the new monarch, who then is in line that can rightfully take over?
Yes, it is. But what we should actually remember is that in Nguni royalty and in broad royalties, there are different houses. There's a seed-bearing house. You know that out of this house, someone must be the one that must, rule. If that house fails to produce an heir, then there is a next house that must produce an heir. But in many instances, is that it becomes either the child produced by the woman whose lobola has been paid by the community, or if the king has married into royalty, and that queen was a princess, actually herself, then her status gets higher, and then it is, for instance, Queen Mantfombi has got a son. The son qualifies, but maybe from other houses they can, but it is for the royal house to decide. But she is there not simply as her own, as an individual, but guided, by the Prime Minister of the Zulu nation, the royal, princes, the senior Makosi, the whole bunch that actually control the Zulu nation.
Professor, how long does a process like that take? When are we to find out finally, if there is even any kind of finality in a process like this, that this is going to be the new monarch?
No, it depends. It could be next week, it could be in the next 6 months, for it depends as to who that person is. If that person is still a minor, but the royal rule belongs to him, then they have to announce who is going to act on their behalf. And if then there's still some kind of a tension as to what it is, as you know that in each and everything there are actually tensions. Although there are rules, it's not as straightforward as it normally is. Then we hope that very soon an announcement will be made by either the Queen or the Prime Minister.
Now, I just want to then find out, Professor, as to how long has a process like this taken place in the Zulu nation? Has this always been how matters are dealt with? I know, yes, we have seen the Queen Mother perhaps being the one that comes forward to do the picking, but has there always been a uniformity in the process of picking the next monarch?
But what we should actually remember is that Shaga took power by force. And Dingane died. In many cases, in many of them, people take over those that were actually powerful. But systematically now, from King Mpande's Stetwayo, down to past Dini Zulu, Cyprian Zulu, to Begi Zulu, to the king, there has been these processes. it is not surprising that the role that is played by Ntwana Kapindangene, I mean, right now, follows, historically, because even during the time of King Tetrayo, this great-great-grandfather, Mnyamane, was the one who did who performed the job that's being done, right now. But again, we have to understand that the world is changing.
Yes.
Culture is not static. Culture undergoes its own changes. So nothing should surprise us.
And just before I let you go, Professor, I know we've spoken at length what kind of festivities. We are under COVID times, so things will definitely be, approached and dealt with differently than, I suppose, how things had happened 50 years ago when uKhumbudzo Zwelithini took over. So what kind of festivities can we expect when, a new monarch does come into power?
What I would actually, think, I may be wrong, what I might actually think is that the royal house might have to encourage all the different nationalities, regions where people are to organize, their festivities. That would be, of course, coordinated, by, the royal house. Even if people are invited, social distances have got to be kept. As we noticed during the memorial, one of the matter of ceremonies, I think it was Craig, who very vehemently reminded people of social distancing. So creative thinking is going to be absolutely very necessary. It is also be very necessary from the one who's also going to take over, because they are going to be meeting far much more challenges than when the late king took over power.
Professor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and just opening us up to how these things work in the Zulu culture. That is Professor Pitika Ntuli, who of course is a historian.